So let's talk about it. What is gender? Hopefully you already answered this question and took some time to reflect on it. And I've asked this question in a lot of trainings, and people say a variety of things. Usually something between sort of birth and preschool, which I think really, really makes sense. But I would actually argue that gender is really a part of our lives before we are even born in many cases. And along with a sort of binary gender division comes other expectations about what gender is and who you are if you're a specific gender. And you can really see that, I think, in these party announcements. I also asked you to think a little bit about what things in our society are divided by gender or have specific expectations for genders in our culture. And I think essentially what we really see here is that the current binary gender system is incredibly pervasive in our society. It's almost the air that we're breathing. So it can really seem like it's this way because it has to be this way, but that really isn't true. So for example, in Victorian England, baby boys wore pink because it was associated with red, which was seen as a strong color, while girls wore blue because it was seen as a calming color. Nowadays, they are so completely reversed that we almost can't imagine them being any other way. But really, Victorian times was not all that long ago. Another example that I love is that in the 17th century in France, red high heels were seen as the epitome of masculinity. And women who wore heels were actually mocked because heels were not seen as feminine. So why am I sort of nerding out about these specific historical facts? Because when we look around the world and when we look back at history, what we see is that the current binary model of gender that we are living in is actually really new. There are many, many examples, and you can see them here, dating back to the earliest recorded history of humanity and really continuing throughout the world. Most indigenous cultures, as you can see on this map, have a third gender or more genders. The link is here. I really recommend checking out this map and reading a little bit about all the different ways that different cultures have thought and do think about gender. What we also know is that about 99.9% of our genes, of our DNA, are the same. And actually, I'm going to get a little historical nerdy again on you. Prior to the Enlightenment era in Europe, the idea around gender was actually that there was one sex and like sort of a spectrum of things within that one. So and actually I think women were seen as sort of underdeveloped men, essentially, right? So we have sexism, of course, present as well. And so this kind of binary model of there being two distinct sexes and genders really only emerges after the French Revolution. And the reason for this is that women really started seeking out the same rights as men. And men wanted to create a category that would allow men to keep power. So they sort of created, like doctors and scientists kind of created this new category of women. Then, if we think about colonialism, this idea of there being a binary gender system really kind of spreads across the globe. And so we often hear, I think, about other ways that colonialism has kind of erased or sort of vilified indigenous practices and beliefs. And I really want to make sure that we are including gender in this because it's as much a part of this history of the sort of vilification of indigenous practices and beliefs as anything else. Okay, I know that that is sort of a lot. So what does all of this mean then, right? What do we take from this sort of understanding of past and present? Essentially what this means is that the current binary gender system that we live in is really, see if I can get up here, I know I can't, is really a social construct. It is a made-up thing that came about because of political and religious forces, but it didn't have to be this way, and it doesn't have to be this way moving forward either. So one of the ways that we can think about gender, if not through the kind of current definition that we have in our society, is that really gender is just how we relate to other people through our body, our personality, and our sexuality.